Okay, so for the last couple days, I've been doing position breakdowns for the Detroit Lions. On Wednesday, I did the quarterback position. Yesterday, I did the running back position, and today I'm going to do wide receivers. I'm trying to get one of these out every day, and there's a lot of wide receivers, so I'm not gonna, I'm gonna try to keep this intro kind of short. But there's a lot of wide receivers. We're gonna do it the same way we did it the last couple positions, and I'll start at the bottom, work our way up to the starters. So let's get into it. The Lions have 7 receivers on their roster right now. They have Danny Amendola, Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, Chris Lacey, Marvin Hall, Quinta Cephas, and Travis Fulgham. All of these receivers are, I don't know. Most of these receivers had an impact last season. All of them played last season for the Lions, even if it was just for a couple games. I'm going to start with Travis Fulgham and work our way up. So Travis Fulgham was the first offensive player drafted out of Old Dominion. He played in the last 3 games of the regular season for the Detroit Lions, but wasn't able to actually make a reception in the regular season. In the preseason, he had a couple really impressive grabs. He had a lot of highlight catches in the preseason, so I think he has the ability to do so. He didn't have a lot of chances. He was only targeted a few times and didn't really have... he had a chance to make receptions, but he didn't really, make the most of it. He didn't receive anything. He didn't have a single catch. He doesn't have a single yard in the NFL. So there's not a whole lot of stats to go. I think it'll be a very similar position to what he was in last year. He'll be kind of a depth receiver, probably on the practice squad again. And if we need him, we'll pull him up, give him another chance. But I don't think that he's going to make the team. So that's kind of that. Chris Lacey is another guy like that. He played in 5 games last year. He had 3 catches for 60 yards. Again, just kind of a depth receiver. Probably will make the practice squad, or he'll be the, however many receivers we carry, he'll probably be the last one if we take that many. So he had 3 catches for 60 yards in in his last season. But he did have a really big catch against the Bucks where, what's his name? David Blau had to roll out, scramble, really got open on the sideline and had a big catch for like 40-something yards. So, that was a very impressive play by him, but he's just not, he's just not, I don't want to say not talented enough, but he's just not as talented as some of the other receivers that we drafted in recent years or signed in free agency. Those are kind of the only 2 wide receivers that I don't think will make the team. Everybody else on this list I do believe will make the team and have an impact this season, either as a full-time starter or a rotational guy or, a situational player. So the last 5 players I'll get into. The first one I'm going to talk about, Quinta Cephas. This was the rookie we drafted in the 5th round out of Wisconsin. And his last year at Wisconsin, he had 59 yards, 59 receptions, 901 yards, and 7 touchdowns through the air. I've gone over him before. I had him going on my mock draft where I talked about him. I had a breakdown where I graded the players where I talked about him. I had several videos where, I've talked about Quinta Cephas, what he can do, how he's a good runner after the catch. He runs like a running back. He's always looking for contact. Obviously, the Jeff Okudah story, I've said it several times on this channel, so I'm not going to say it again. If you want to see it again, just go look up any video that talks about the later rounds or, the draft grades or anything like that. You'll hear what I'm talking about. Jeff Okudah basically said he's the best receiver that he played against last season. So that's, I'm not going to talk about that too much, but basically I think that he's going to make the roster as our 5th receiver. I think he's going to come in situationally, or if there's like fatigue or injury or something, I think he could step in and be a very good role player. I think he'll have good production in season 1. I don't know how effective he'll be. I don't know how many chances that he's going to get, but I think that he'll make the most of the chances that he does get. So I think that he'll make the team. The next person on our list is Marvin Hall. He kind of came out of nowhere last season. I believe his first game was against the Chiefs. We picked him up kind of in the middle of the season when people started to go down. And he just, he's a big play threat every time he touches the ball. Last season, he had 7 receptions for 261 yards and a touchdown. Here's an interesting stat. His shortest reception last year was for 21 yards. He just, every time he touches the ball, it's a big gain. He was number 1 in the NFL in yards per reception last year with 37.3 yards of reception. I know it was kind of a small sample size last year, only 7 receptions, but he did get injured, which is, a theme last year. He played in 7 games and made the most of it. I mean, he was, I don't want to say he was my favorite player, but he was definitely a player that I look forward to watching every Sunday with the Lions, just because any given play he could break open for a huge, 40, 50-yard reception and just, completely flip the field and give the Lions a great scoring opportunity. So I think that he's going to get more playing time this season. Hopefully he stays healthy. Hopefully he can continue making big plays for the Lions like he did last season. And I think he'll be our wide receiver 4. So then we get to the starting 3. And you know who they are: Danny Amendola, Marvin Jones, and Kenny Golladay. So Danny Amendola will start in the slot probably next season. He played 15 games for the Lions last year. He had 62 receptions for 678 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he's a very effective, what's the word? He's a very efficient slot receiver, very effective, very consistent. Kind of what you're going to get out of Danny Amendola. He's going to get a lot of receptions. He's a very reliable slot receiver. He was a favorite target of Stafford last year when they were playing together. He's gonna come in and do what he always does. He's gonna have receptions. He's gonna get decent yardages. He's gonna get a couple touchdowns. He's gonna move the chains on third down. He's just a reliable slot receiver that Stafford can look to on third down if they need a quick pitch and catch, and they're gonna get the chains moving. I thought this was a great signing last year. I'm glad they brought him back for one more season. I think this will probably be his last season in Detroit, but I think that he's still going to put up good numbers. And, I think that he's going to have another good season in Detroit. So then we get to the 2 boundary receivers. Marvin Jones, he played in 13 games, had 62 receptions for 779 yards and 9 touchdowns. 4 of those touchdowns did come in one game against the Vikings. He had a, very good game. Every year he seems to have one of those games where he scores 3 or 4 touchdowns on a division rival and just kind of goes off. He's a good number 2. He has, good production every year. He kind of has some injury concerns the last couple of years. He's been out in the last couple of games of the season, but I wouldn't, I'm not sure that that's a big concern for him. I would expect his production to go up even next year just because Stafford's going to be back throwing the ball. He's going to have better QB play, and I think that's going to help him. I don't know if he'll get injured again, but he plays most of the season every year, so I would expect him to play at least 13 games, if not all 16, and if we make it to the playoffs, into the playoffs. But, he's just a very, very good receiver. I think we got him for a cheap contract a couple of years ago out of Cincinnati. It was a great, decision to pick him up. He's been very productive for the Lions. He was the number 1 for a year, and then we brought Kenny Golladay in, and he kind of emerged as that, star, that sleeper out of the draft. We got him in the 3rd round out of Northern Illinois, and, Marvin Jones kind of took the second role over, and I think he's very good at what he does. He's a very consistent receiver. He's going to go up and get it. He's very tough after the run, which is kind of a theme. I think all of our guys can run very well after the catch, so maybe that's a shout out to our wide receiver coaches, teaching how to run after the catch, because I feel like all the Lions do that very well. They run very hard, and they work very hard after the catch to get extra yardage. But nobody on the roster is Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay is the number 1 receiver in the draft, top 10 receiver in the NFL, draft steal from a couple of years ago. He's the only Pro Bowler on the offense from last season, only Pro Bowler on the team from last season. He played in all 16 games, plus the Pro Bowl. He had 65 catches for 1,190 yards and 11 touchdowns. Those 11 touchdowns were the most in the NFL. What speaks the most about Kenny Golladay is that his production did not drop when Stafford went down. He still had that amazing production, still got 11 touchdowns with, playing with backup quarterbacks for half the season. His production never dropped. He never complained. I think that says a lot about his character. I think that says a lot about his ability to get the ball no matter who's throwing it to him. And I really hope that the Lions extend him after this season because he's, the best weapon we have right now. if we lose Kenny Golladay, we're gonna pretty much be starting over. We just need to pay him, get that out of the way, get him ready for the future. I want him to be aligned for his whole career. Um, but very, very, good receiver. He's a top 10 in the NFL undoubtedly. You can make a case for top 5, but I mean, you don't get much better than Kenny Golladay, and he's on a cheap deal. Yeah, he's on his rookie contract still, so he still gives us money to come bring in some free agents and help the team out. Um, so some predictions for next season. I think that Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay could both have 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. I think that's not ridiculous to say. Kenny Golladay did it last year with backup quarterbacks for half the season. Marvin Jones was close. He missed 3 games, and he had 9 touchdowns, so he was only 1 touchdown away from 10, and he was like 200-something away from 1,000. So, I mean, that's not ridiculous. I think he could have got that in 3 games. I think Danny Amendola will have kind of a similar season to last year. Kind of a third down guy you look at to get the chains moving. He's going to get open. He's a good route runner. He's got good hands. Doesn't drop the ball. Marvin Hall, I would expect to kind of see what we did last year. He's kind of the forgotten guy on this offense. I would assume that, well, here's a story. When I went to the Lions game against the Chiefs, we saw Marvin Hall make a couple nice catches, and the guy next to me had no idea who Marvin Hall was. I mean, he's kind of the forgotten guy in this receiving room, and I think that helps him a lot because he's going to get, probably he's not going to get the number 1 corner. He's probably not going to get the number 2 if Marvin Jones is out there. So he's kind of on that third-string cornerback or that safety, and he's going to beat him deep almost every time. He's got great speed to go deep. He's great at tracking the ball, and every time he touches the ball, he makes a big play out of it. So I would expect kind of similar things like that next year. A lot of big plays, a lot of shots down the field to Marvin Hall. So that's kind of what I would expect out of him. I wouldn't expect a ton of production out of Quinta Cephas unless there's an injury. I think he's going to come in probably, as a replacement for Danny Amendola if he gets hurt or just, fatigue throughout the game. He'll play. I would assume he'll play a little bit, but I wouldn't expect him to, be a premier target for this year or probably next year. But he might emerge. You never know. Every year there's breakout players, so there's no reason to say he can't do that. I mean, he has all the ability. But I would expect everybody's stats to go up next year just because we have Matthew Stafford playing a whole season, hopefully. Hopefully he stays healthy again. And then if not, I think Chase Daniels is better than both of our backup quarterbacks last year. So I think that he's going to be better distributing the ball also. So I think the better quarterback play is going to help these receivers even more than they already are. I mean, wide receiver, definitely a strength for the Lions, definitely a very deep position. I think any one of those 5 guys can compete for a starting role, especially the top 4 can definitely all start in the NFL, and I think that this is a very deep group for the Lions. I think that this is a strength. I think this is something the Lions can lean on as the passing game next season, especially if we start having some decent running finally in Detroit, that'll open up a lot in the passing game. But so that's kind of, what I'm thinking. That's kind of what I'm predicting for next season with the wide receiver group. I think that they're going to have a very good season next year. I think they're all going to put up very good numbers. So, yeah, I'll get back tomorrow probably with the tight ends. I was going to do tight ends in this video, but I didn't want the video to be super long. So I'm just going to cut them up next for tomorrow. Do a whole separate video on them because they're kind of a different position. They're, they block a lot more than wide receivers. And just kind of, it'd be tough to rank tight ends versus wide receivers best to worst because, it would be tough. So I'm just going to do tight ends tomorrow. If you enjoy the content, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It means the world to me, everybody that does that. I'll see you guys tomorrow, or if there's Lions news before that, I'll see you guys then. Thanks. Bye.